Witam wszystkich bardzo serdecznie na kolejnym webinarze z serii Wizja legalizacji marihuany. Moim dzisiejszym gościem jest Ramon Granados, czyli przedstawiciel ruchu konopnego i świata konopnego w Australii. Witam mojego gościa, za chwileczkę przejdziemy na język angielski w takim razie. Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody on the webinar today. My guest is Ramon Granados from Australia. We are going to talk a little bit about marijuana situation in Australia, and we are going to try to get some experience from our guest, but also I think the main focus on our conversation today will be industrial hemp, because our guest is an expert in this sector especially. So please welcome my guest, and please say a little bit about the projects you're working on and a little bit about yourself, so our guests know who you are exactly.
Hello, Idea. Thank you for your kind invitation to your show. Yes, I'm a civil engineer. I'm an environmental engineer. I am also a planning and project controls engineer. I used to work in the oil and gas industry for over 26 years until I discovered the plant in Hemp in 2016. Nonetheless, I have been a regular fanatic of the flower itself for medical purposes and recreational purposes and for religious purposes. You asked me something else? Yes, I have been working in this industry in the last 4 or 5 years. Yes, I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome. Thank you for having the time to talk to us today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this cannabis in Australia. We have been talking a little bit on the backstage about that and before. So I'd like to ask you about the law in Australia, because you said everything is just theory. I found some information that since 2016, medical marijuana got legalized in Australia. Also in the Capital Territory, since 2019, it's allowed to have little amounts of marijuana. It says 50 grams of dry flowers, 150 grams of wet flowers, and 2 plants per individual, or 4 plants.
Yes, I confirm that in our capital,
200
Canberra.
Wet. Can
Hello?
You hear me?
I think I lost you.
I think we are back. Are we back?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Yes,
okay,
I confirm.
So the law passed in the capital.
I think we have a little bit of.
So the law passed in the Capital Territory in some connection issues. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I confirm that in our
we are collecting the signatures to decriminalize 30 grams, 200 grams at home, and 4 plants, which is basically very similar to the law that was passed in the Capital Territory in Australia in 2019. So my question is, what's the real situations? Are you really allowed to possess the cannabis and grow cannabis in the Capital Territory? And if patients are actually allowed to possess and use cannabis, medical marijuana?
Yes, I confirm that in the capital, Canberra, you can actually have your own plants. I don't recall if it's up to 2 or 4 plants per family or per house. But it's fully legalized in that area. But in the rest of the nation, it's not like this. Every state have their own laws, but they're all kind of similar, very draconian laws. You get caught for whatever reason, either targeted or random, and if you're tested, you're you are considered a criminal. That is so. That is not absolutely right. What is written or what is being said overseas. In regards to the CBD, it's almost the similar situation. Hemp growers are encouraged to grow hemp, but mainly for the biomass. You are not allowed to use the leaf. You're enforced to burn the leaf, and you're enforced to burn the flowers. Otherwise, you get caught and your life is also ruined. And so that is basically the status of where we are. And just about 2 weeks ago, which is no long history, the government claimed that you can actually buy CBD over the counter, but that is not the actual fact. It is, I mean, the process to get your card or your authorization to have CBD and or medical marijuana is long, complex. Most doctors are not in, they tell you, yes, doctor, you should apply, but on the other hand, apply to provide the medicine to the patients, but on the other hand, the government target the doctor. So it's kind of, like, it reminds me of South America. I give you the law, but I will go. But if you disobey, I put you in jail. So it's kind of a little bit complicated. Nonetheless, on the industrial hemp, there is it's been legalized since over 15 years. It is now when it's starting to pick up massively in many aspects. Australia is very blessed with a lot of technologies. A lot of technology has been developed, have been invented, created, or developed here in this country in many aspects. The corticators, processing machines, it's very well advanced in this country and it's being used in overseas. But in everything that has to do with smoking and oil, cannabis oil, or for patients, it's not.
Okay, that's interesting. So basically what you're saying is that it's only the theory that the law has been passed for medical marijuana. And in practice, patients don't really have the access to the medicine. That's a little better in Poland. So because we have medical marijuana, we only have a few strains to choose from. But still, there are a few, and even though they are expensive, there's always something, right? So the other thing I'd like to ask you is that the law in Australia seems to be really strict. It's not only about possessing cannabis, because the penalties are pretty high. As far as I've been doing the research about Australia before our conversation, I found that only 41% of Australians are for legalization of marijuana. 37% are against, and 22% are undecided. So basically, those numbers, they don't exceed the 50% of the society for legalization. So basically, that's a signal for the politicians to keep the law the way it is, basically. But what I found also, the very interesting information about the market around cannabis, that basically that there is no market at all. Selling seeds is illegal, but also selling all the paraphernalia and the equipment for smoking. Even possessing a bong is illegal in Australia. Is it true? So there is no market around cannabis, even though the cannabis is illegal in Europe? There's a huge market around that.
Well, it's like I said, it's a little bit awkward because there are stores that sell paraphernalia of all type. You can have them in your house, or you can have them in your car. You get stopped by police, and if the paraphernalia is clean, you don't have a problem. But if it has been used, forget it. You don't want to be in that situation.
Okay, so basically you have to clean your pong. That's a message.
It is something like you can kiss me, but you cannot touch me.
Okay then. Well, coming back to medical marijuana, I'd like to ask you, because the law, in theory, it says patients are allowed to grow cannabis. Is it what you said is not really true? You said that medical marijuana is basically very strict. But what I'd like to ask you about is your opinion about how it should be, because during these conversations, I'm trying to focus on the future. And do you think patients should be able to grow medical marijuana at home, or should it be left to the big corporations who also do a lot of research? Because the patients you growing that at home, should it be a choice for patients to grow, or to go to the big corporations, or only corporations should have licensed plantations that pay taxes? What's your opinion about growing medical marijuana by the patients?
Well, you have touched a sensible point or personal point on that regards, because I have many discussions and arguments on that regards. First of all, I am Latino background. Uruguay was the first country on earth that legalized cannabis. Second one was Canada, and the third one is just been Mexico. In both Latino countries that I just mentioned, there is a dual scheme on that regard. In order to reach the masses, you need the corporations. They have the logistics, they have the supply chain, so you cannot argue that. But on the other hand, you must allow the people to grow their own for many reasons. When you have the people growing their own, you can have a free market that can eventually bring those strains into the mainstream. That is my personal opinion. Therefore, yes, the use of marijuana or cannabis is a human right. It is not up to it shouldn't be up to the government to decide what I'm going to be using for my medicine or what I'm going to be using for my own well-being. Growing marijuana is like growing tomatoes, and there is no difference about it. Now, yes, once again, we need corporations in order to reach out the people, because we are basically 8 billion people on Earth. So even if we want to reach 10% of that number, we need big corporations to do it. And one or two guys are gathered together in a club and start growing, are never going to compete with massive production, which is what we need in either flowers or oil or any other thing. That is my thinking.
Okay, but one thing is growing for their own use, and that's pretty simple question, because if you know how to grow and you know what's your medicine, and even if you're growing for your friends or the people you know, that's a little easier. But should people who grow medical marijuana at home be able to sell it? What about the quality control? Should it be tested? And what about, because when it comes to medical marijuana, we basically don't know much yet about it. So we need a lot of research, and the patients are not going to conduct this research themselves. We need those corporations to move the knowledge to the forward. So should the question is, should the patients be able, who are growing medical marijuana at home, to sell it to the other patients, or should it be based on the clubs of patients, like a little bit like in Spain, or should it be a new model of, how do you see that?
That is a complicated question, because the true fact is that until now, there has not been one single death of any case related to marijuana. That is a fact. So we have been having thousands of years of research on that regard. I don't think there has been any other plant on earth that has been more studied and researched than marijuana. So when it comes to one person that wants to sell 1 ounce, 2, 3 ounces to friends or so, that's never going to compete, ever going to compete with the corporations. So corporations are talking tonnage. It's 2, 3 guys are gathering in a club will never be able to compete with a corporation. So it's a kind of tricky question. What I believe, once again, is that marijuana is a human right. You should be able to grow your own. And I'm not sure if you can share it. You can even sell 1, 2, 3 ounces to your friends or so. But once again, it will never compete. Never.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for this answer. I'd like to maybe close up a little bit this marijuana topic that contains a lot of THC and move to cannabis plants, hemp plants that are rich in other cannabinoids. One more question about the CBD. Then you said CBD is not growing CBD legal in Australia, because industrial hemp that contains no cannabinoid, low potencies of cannabinoids is legal right now in Australia. You need a license, but this is so I'm going to ask you about this a little later. But how about the high potency of CBD? Is it legal to grow it?
No, it's not legal to grow CBD in Australia.
Okay, so let's move to growing industrial hemp. You say it's legal, but do you need a license? And how hard it is to get a license? Is it just prohibition with exceptions for people with the money that got an expensive license, or is it open? Like in Poland, it's basically very easy to get this license. It is licensed, but it's pretty easy to get it. How does it look like in Australia?
Yeah, it is not difficult to get the license in Australia. Anyone that has the land and a project and a little bit of cash to back up the project shouldn't have any problem at all in obtaining the license. However, every state is different. In Western Australia is different, where I am. Queensland is different, Victoria is different, so it's not. No, hemp engineering has several partnerships around Australia, in the state of Victoria, in the state of Western Australia, so it's no big deal. We are basically authorized to grow for biomass, fiber. The leaf, the flowers, they're not, that you cannot grow for medical purposes. Medical purposes is considered marijuana.
And for seeds?
Seed for food, yes.
And okay, so seeds for food, for cosmetics, and for just selling the seeds to grow more hemp, right? Also.
And yes. But for genetics, it's another business. But for food, cosmetics, and these kind of things, no problem at all. Biomass for hempcrete or bedding, or for fiber itself for plastics, it's no problem at all.
Okay, let's move to this topic then, because you're an expert on hempcrete, hemp, and building with hemp. I know that. So tell me a little bit about your project. Is it popular? How popular is building with hemp in Australia, and how do you contribute to making that popular?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify that I don't know I'm not sure if I am an expert. There are people that are much more knowledgeable than me in that regard. France is, there are best engineers on that regard. In Europe, they lead when it comes to hempcrete. I'm just basically a newcomer. Nonetheless, as a civil engineer, I have a deep understanding of the line and how it could be used with other biomass. That is a fact. Hemp engineering is currently related to 3 different projects. One, we have a client in Sydney that we are doing a 130 square meters extension for a hempcrete home. So this house was designed by a very famous architect here in Australia. The second project is in Malaysia, where we are currently hiring our architect to kick off that project. And nonetheless, we have already acquired the land, and the owner of the project is deeply involved in the hemp business as well. The third project that our company is managing from Perth is in Colombia. We are also kicking off an eco village, or everything about hempcrete. but it is our purpose. Um, it's not just about building with hempcrete. This is not what we are looking for with hemp engineering. What we are targeting is to be able to use the structure made out of hemp wood, use the plastic as much as we can, use our batteries to have a self-sustainable and off-grid houses or eco-villages. As we speak, there is enough technology around to build homes completely without concrete, without using timber, or without using traditional plastic. The fact of the matter that in this moment we could build even the kitchen and the furniture made out of hemp. And that is our target. That's what hemp engineering is focused in delivering.
Okay, so that's a new set of a part of a market that hemp can conquer, because hemp basically you can do everything using hemp.
Everything.
Maybe not only,
Everything.
maybe not only hemp. You need some other ingredients sometimes, but basically that's mostly about hemp. It's healthy. So please tell me, how efficient is building with hemp? Time in terms of costs, and in terms of how much space do you need to grow hemp for, to making hempcrete building, or even making the furniture affordable? How big must the investment be? Can you do it on the low level, like you have a little bit of field, you can start manufacturing that and make a chair, or does it have to be a huge investment? What's the level of this kind of business?
Well, growing for construction purposes itself is not expensive. Actually, you need for 100 square meters, you need just about 20 tons, give and take. If you use hempcrete for the walls, for the floor, and for the roof, and you might need a little bit more for other, like I was just telling you, for timber or else. But processing is where the big money is required to get the final product. So in Australia, because we don't grow much compared with China or compared with Europe or Canada, the overall country does not grow more than 3,000 hectares in the whole country per year. We're talking China grows over 120,000 hectares per year. Canada and Europe are in the same order. United States also getting there. So growing in Australia is still more expensive than traditional construction. Nonetheless, here in our state, we have the largest concentration of hempcrete home on earth. We keep building and building and building. People believe in this part of the world. People are embracing the fact that we could transform the way that we build, primarily because the sand banks are dying. You need a lot of sand to build with concrete, or for us, concrete. With hemp, you just need lime and water, and hemp, of course. The benefit of it is are good. How long do we have? Well, basically, I can tell you, for the Australian weather or environment, it is ideal because it's fire resistant. My company and other companies have done excellent research and development on that regard. You can torch a wall for 15, 20 minutes in 1,200 centigrade, and it doesn't even smoke. So the breathability of the walls after it's cured are outstanding. So it makes the walls absolutely healthy. It's anti-mold. So it means it doesn't matter how humid the conditions are, the walls will never become black. In our weather also, it's ideal because it's anti-termite and anti-ants. So it's not just for the Australian weather, but I believe it's a it's a given for most countries on earth.
So you basically answered two of my questions. I wanted to ask you how popular it is to build with hemp in Australia, but you said it's basically the most popular place to build with hemp in the world. So that answers my question. But there is one very interesting one that came up from the audience, which says, is it possible to build, how massive buildings can you build with hemp? Because you said previously that you cannot build a house entirely from hemp. You still need some other concrete or some other materials, building materials to do that. It's not entirely from hemp yet. But is it possible to build big buildings, like even skyscrapers? Does the technology allow that? Or is it just small homes?
No, absolutely. In this moment, there is, like I said, there is enough technology we can go crazy. If that can help the answer. Yes. Nothing. Let me see if I can put it from the engineering perspective. From the engineering perspective, and from the engineering perspective and from the technology perspective, there is nothing stop us to reach the sky on that regard. The technology that is being developed for plastic and for wood hemp is unbelievable. Hempcrete is just a component of. Actually, hempcrete is the easiest technology that we can develop. It's not a big deal. It's a matter of learning how to get the hemp, mix it with lime in the proper mix. It depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to do panels, blocks, or earthen way, or 3D printer. It depends on what you're going to do. But it's more than that. It's what we can get from the other components. That I'm not sure if that is well answered to your audience.
Yeah, I think there is, but can you please tell a little bit about what you just mentioned? You said there's a possibility to print with 3D. There is a way to make the bricks or the blocks, or there is a way to use hempcrete. What are the options of building with hemp? What are the forms of?
Well, every project has its own, I can only talk to you as an engineer or expert on project management. That's basically what I do. But every project is different. Every project is unique. So it depends on the characteristics where the location of the construction site is. If transporting the hemp and the lime is too far away, so maybe a better option just to prefab either in blocks or panels and bring it to the site, or there are many options. But yes, you can build in many ways. You can build in aircrete ways, and you can mean that you can spray the hempcrete on the walls. It's techniques, but you can also do blocks. You can do panels. You can do 3D printing. So the possibilities are endless. It all depends on the project. So I am very, personally speaking or professionally speaking, I never advise to any of our clients to go for one specific methodology until we understand exactly what is best for them. So we take decisions based on the economics and the cost effectiveness of what they could require.
Okay. Thank you for this answer. That reminds me of my first conversation with Maciej Kowalski I had during this webinars, and he was saying that basically they're using all the parts of the plants they can. You're saying that in Australia it's not really possible. Flowers and leaves you're not allowed to grow for this part of plant, but is it being a waste, or do you have to throw it away, or is it being processed anyway? Because you are producing for biomass, but what do you do with the rest? Just throw it away? Sorry?
Yep. Gotta be burned. And in many cases,
okay.
Yes, but in many cases, and this is not just in Australia, I'm telling you this is happening worldwide. It is most companies are starting to realize that the actual gold rush is not in CBD, it's using the biomass. That is what is actually happening. So a lot of companies that used to burn the biomass because they only focus in the flower, like in the United States, now they are realizing that, oh my God, this we can transform everything with this. So this is where hemp engineering is trying to play a key role on that regard, advising and leading projects that can be cost effective to our clients.
Well, that's super important. That's a big role to play. Then going back to biomass, what can you tell me about the hemp battery you were just presenting at the trade show last month? What can you tell me about how is it possible to produce energy from hemp, like from the beginners?
Well, this is not my project itself. All I'm just doing is connecting the dots of the different experts and scientists that are in my network. The actual brain behind this is Mr. Carl Martel. He's a Canadian citizen. He is a cannabis scientist. So somehow we have been working together lately, just under his leadership, and just building what he has discovered. Karl Martel was recently named as the Henry Ford of our times. So he's very creative. He's got a lot of inventions, and I am very honored working side by side with him. But yes, we can build batteries made from hemp. The conductivity of this plant is unbelievable. It is already proven that it is 200% more efficient than lithium itself. So yes, it's a big revolution that we can bring to the world on that regard.
Do you think I understand you're connecting the dots, but I think from your perspective, from your experience, you can say what part of plant is being used to actually produce energy? What's the process? Is it burning? How do you get the energy? How do you produce and put this energy in a battery? Do you think you can help some people understand how is it actually working?
There is it's a complex process. It's a chemical process. You've got to first get the biomass itself and convert it into charcoal, and the charcoal then is used with other chemicals to produce a battery. Yes, it's very simple to explain, but very complex to do. Yes.
That makes okay. That answers.
Something that we will soon be creating also our own intellectual property, just to make sure that we can reach the masses properly. Yes.
Okay, so what's the ecological impact of producing hemp energy? What's the carbon footprint? Is it based, because sometimes it seems to be ecological, but then the carbon footprint exceeds the options that it creates, basically creating. Is it ecological way of producing energy, or it still has some downsides?
Well, this is compared with the current scheme of mining. When we talk about growing our home, growing our batteries, growing our timber, of course, it's got a huge impact in the way that we do business, because just put it this way, we don't need to cut trees anymore, because we can do batteries, we can do timber out of hemp. As a matter of fact, I am talking currently to another company in Mexico that they are about to start growing massive extensions of hemp to substitute the deforestation that is currently in their country. So when you think about it, the impact of just growing by itself, the way that we can capture carbon, the way that that during the process of growing and during the process of processing the plant, there is no competition. It's no competition. We need to keep in mind something, idea, if I may. We are still in the prohibition era. The prohibition era started because 4 different or 5 different industry, cotton, plastic, don't remember all of them, the medicine, they just couldn't have hemp competing with them. So in this moment, we are basically being witness of our reawakening in a different shift, where we can basically compete openly with any other industry. But we are still in the prohibition. This is a little bit ideal. What we believe is that if we were in a ideal situation, then we should be competing openly with our products in the world. But it's not like this. Most of the products on Earth are protected, especially the plastic. Plastic is a real direct threat to humanity, to the oceans, to the way that we manage our trash. So when you think about it, everything that we can do with hemp on regards to plastic that can be biodegradable or else is a direct threat to the oil and gas industry.
Okay, you said just a few seconds ago, you said that it's not ideal situation yet. So why I started this set of conversations with the expert is to find the ideal way. Please tell me everything you think about what should be ideal way. What's the ideal way in your opinion?
Well, my lady, it's not about the ideal is that at the end of the day, we come down to the law. The law defines the way that we do business. So ideally, the law should be supporting capitalism. It's something that I truly believe in. So we should be widely competing with our products without any kind of limitations. But it's not. The law forbids that we, the people that are in the hemp business, compete with the rest of the products. And that's the way it is. So ideally, the law should be changed in all countries.
That's the question. Which laws should be changed? Because you said it's not very hard to get this license all over Australia. It differs from in different parts of the country. But you said basically that hemp is legalized but for limited purposes. So you think the goal is to change the purposes in the law of why should you be able to grow hemp? Where should it be going in terms of the law and changing the law?
Well, the second step is growing the market. Like I said, we are still in the prohibition. Most of the people, or just to say specifically, 70% of the population is understanding that anything that has to do with hemp is related to marijuana. So there is a lot of stigma around. So it's building markets when you have stigma or when the governments are chasing people because you're smoking weed and they're related to hemp. Yes, it's the law, but it's also about marketing. Reaching out the markets in this situation is very difficult. And
Okay.
if I may, when you have products and you want to post them, let's say post them, or use the social media to grow your products, like in Facebook. Facebook is the vanguard of the prohibition. You cannot, anything that you said in Facebook, they have the right to ban it if they want to, or if they choose to do so, or if they choose to do so. And many other social medias are the same. So the prohibition is still alive. It's not. Look at yourself in the United States. It's not just about Australia. It's United States. United States. They passed the Farm Bill. Federally, is illegal to grow, and yet you cannot use the banks. You cannot go to Facebook which is the largest social media, most influential media. You cannot publish what you can. They ban every time that they want. So yes, it's not just the law; it's the market and also everything surrounding it. It's the belief of what we're understanding about the plant. So it's going to take some time before we can reach the ideal situation. But the ideal situation is related to the capitalism itself. I support capitalism itself when it's related to an open market. But the open market in that regard is not allowed. We cannot compete. And when you cannot compete, then we are all in trouble.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is pretty similar situation to the one that is happening in Europe, which means that one thing is that we are already changing the law a little bit. The law has already changed, but it's not being implemented. It's not being used in practice. So one thing is making the officials use the law that is actually being implemented, like legalizing medical marijuana in Australia in 2016, or just decriminalizing that in the capital, and actually respecting that it got decriminalized entirely for specific amounts. But the question is it, where do you think should be focused your, in Australia, energy of people that care about hemp to implement the law that has already been passed, which means what I just said, and also to make it easier for everyone to grow hemp? Or, I mean, are the officials making that harder for everyone to grow hemp? Or is it actually about changing the law because it's really wrong right now and there's nothing to do in the current situation without changing the law?
It's a little bit of both, once again, and I believe we are we're mixing hemp with marijuana. It is easy to find, quite easy to find, or the license to grow hemp, with the limitation that you cannot grow for flowers and leaf. But on regards of marijuana itself, unless you are a corporation in this moment, you are not allowed to grow in Australia for personal uses.
Yes, I was referring to hemp right now. I mean, actually, I am putting that together a little bit on purpose because I would like to everything would be just open without criminalization. I think everything should be just decriminalized, as Mark Emery said last week. Just stop. Just stop making marijuana a crime. Just stop putting people in jail for cannabis. That's basically the main message from the previous conversation last week with my guest Mark Emery from Canada. So but I was actually referring also to hemp. Are officials making it hard to grow hemp in Australia, or is it? So is it because in Poland it basically is a problem? Only most of the areas in Poland basically agreed to allow people to grow hemp, but not all of them. So it is basically a problem with the current law, with the officials.
But idea, we cannot put both in the same package. Basically, because hemp is for industrial purposes. When you talk about industrial purposes, it means that you're going to create a product to reach the masses. So when you're going to grow, you have to grow for large of farming. You got to go 100 hectares, 200 hectares, thousands of hectares. I just told you that Europe, Canada, China, they go over 120,000 hectares per year. When you cannot put small farmers to grow 1, 2, 3, 5, or 20 hectares, because the investments to buy the processing machines and to the manufacturing machine of products are large investments or significant investments. So when you grow marijuana, it's just you grow marijuana, just cut the flower, they trim it, and you're ready to go. So you cannot put it's two completely different business.
Okay, so you're saying the officials are not the problem here, the law is basically. But what are the other obstacles that Australia is facing? What are the biggest problems that you have to face in terms of making hemp more popular and even using all of the parts of the plant that it could be, you don't have to burn, you can just use effectively?
The law have to change. The law have to be more friendly with the farmers. Right now the gold rush is behind the oil, and if we want the farmers to be successful and to become rich so that they can invest more in the business itself, you have to let them be. You have to let them compete. But it's like I said at the beginning, you can kiss me, but you cannot touch me. It doesn't work like this.
I understand. There's another question that came up from the audience that says, what is the maximum limit for THC in hemp, which should be adapted to the international hemp law for all for safe entrepreneurs?
Most countries on earth, the limit for THC is 0.3%. Nonetheless, in the state I live, it's 1%. Very few countries on earth have that. Well, not countries or regions. We are not a country. Western Australia is a state of Australia. We have 1%. But there are other countries that also reach the 1% without any hesitation. I don't have them in the top of my head. I believe Uruguay is one of them. Don't recall in this moment. Thailand is one of them as well.
Switzerland is 1% as well.
Thailand is 1% as well. I believe, but most countries is 0.3% of THC.
Poland is 0.2.
Which you ask me is kind of, I can talk only as an engineer, and if a politician listens, I can tell them right on. That is a very awkward for you to understand if I can talk about numbers. If you process, let's say, 100 kilos of THC, if you process 100 kilos, and then you get out of 100 kilos the oil, and the oil still got 0.3%. It means that out of the 100 kilos, you can get 300 grams of 300 grams of THC. So 300 grams, it's got a big value in the market. So technologically speaking, it doesn't matter the percentage. We still can get it out, and we can still process it and sell it if we want to, or reconvert it if we want to. That's something that South Africa has become an expert. So in countries where the legal limit is 1%, you process 100 kilos, you get 1 kilo, and still you can make a lot of money from THC. So technologically speaking, it doesn't make sense, the percentage. Because the gold rush beyond the CBD is the biomass for final products. And that's where the big money is. In the moment that our politicians understand this, then we are talking business. But in this moment, we're still talking the prohibition echoes in their mouth. I always refer, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit rushed on this, but I always refresh or remind people of the 100 monkey syndrome. The 100 monkey syndrome is that when you put in a cage several monkeys, and the monkeys try to grab one of the banana, and you put an electric shock in it, all of them will not chase the banana. And then you pull out all the monkeys up, bring a new ones, but you leave only one in the cage. When the new monkeys will try to catch the banana, the monkey that was before, it will not allow the monkeys to touch, and they will never understand why. And that's exactly what is happening. Our politicians are repeating the echoes of the prohibition. And the prohibition was basically targeting Latinos and Black for discrimination. So in the moment that we change our mind, perhaps we all can have fun, enjoying the plant, making money, and pray to Jah.
That's interesting, and that also raises a question: why did it follow to Poland then? But the other question, what I wanted to talk to you about, and we have only a few minutes left, is also the market of food and cosmetics, which you say is basically open in Australia. That's one of the reasons one of the ways you can use cannabis, not speaking of what you cannot do only. So how popular is it to grow hemp? Because you said there's 3,000 hectares in Australia being hemp grown all over Australia. So how much of it, what's the percentage is being used for energy, as you said, and how fast is the food and cosmetic market growing?
Well, when you talk about growing for seeds, that's where you get your raw material for cosmetics and food.
Yeah.
The market is booming. I can't really express this number because it's not my business itself. But in terms of food and cosmetics, oh my God, this is you go everywhere. It's supermarkets, markets, boutiques, everywhere. Cities everywhere.
Okay, so what kind of products?
Cosmetic is something that we are in Australia. I am very happy that I can see that it's penetrating the market very strongly. Not as much as I wish, but yes, the products that you find out of Australia for both food and cosmetics is booming. It's technology and the work behind that. There have been people dedicated to do that in 20, 30 years working on that regards in this country or worldwide as well. It's not just here.
Okay. So you said it's very popular. So are there a lot of Australian companies that are basically manufacturing hemp and hemp seeds? And what's the variety of the products? Is it just basic flour, milk, hemp milk, and just the regular products, or is it booming as in the United States, which is huge choice of hemp products already?
There's a huge range of products, but Australia only have 22 million people. So it's more market compared with Europe or Canada or United States. Well, not so Canada also. Nonetheless, Australia is part of the Australasia region. The city I live is Perth. And we grow, we wake up and we go to sleep with 60% of the overall population. So our natural market is Asia. So this is something that I keep repeating in this part of the world. Our market is not United States. Our market is not Europe. They have their own business. Our market is Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, all China, Korea, Japan, you name it. I mean, the whole world. And Australia was basically colonized with the purpose of growing hemp. So if we retake our own history and we retake the purpose, we can certainly dominate the market for many reasons. In this country, we can grow up to 3 times per year. The weather allows it. The sun, this is one of the sunniest countries on earth, and with the best weather for hemp. So yes, it's a little bit awkward to understand why we don't actually reach or go into that path, but we're getting there. When we talk about technology, you can change, you can disrupt the world with technology from one day to the other. But when we talk about changing laws, then we're talking sensible matters, it's sociological aspects. You're talking the perception. But moreover, in countries like where democracy exists, our politicians are more concerned of their own, their polls rather than the long-term vision.
Okay, fair enough. But you did say, you just said that Asia is your major market, Indonesia, basically.
Natural market.
Yeah, but you did. Okay. It is a target market though, because it's a natural one.
Yes. Yes.
So, but you did say China is one of the biggest hemp producers in the world. How do you compete with China then? Because this is the market they're interested in as well.
Well, there is something that I love Australia for, is the quality of our products. The government is very jealous I could say, or protective of the products that we sell overseas. So when our products are high quality and high demanded on that regard, when we reach the ideal state or the ideal situation where we can manufacture large quantities of products and put them in the market, China will not be able to compete with us.
So, but the scale of production doesn't matter in the. Okay, that's a very interesting question for me. Then, do you think there is already a scale of production? Are you using the benefits of scale in hemp production? Because 3,000 hectares is not a lot. Do you think China is using one already? Then, and then is anyone going to be able to catch up with China in terms of when they get to the level that they are going to use this? The scale of production and the costs getting much lower?
Well, hemp engineering is currently having alliances and partnership with many other companies in that are looking at the same vision that I'm sharing with you or your audience in this moment. So it's a matter of time. We're working for this. We're working for that goal. Yes.
Okay, so what do you think is the future of hemp in Australia? Where do you think it's all going, and what's your vision of where it should be going in terms of hemp? Because that's your main field of work.
Let me see if I can put it this way. Currently, most of the earth that we use for building construction is coming either from Holland, the Netherlands, and or China. That's our providers. We believe that in the years to come, we will be able to stop that because we will have our own, we will be self-sufficient. And as we grow, the quality of that we will produce will be a reference in the market. So it is just about being consistent, keeping keep the mind in the goal, and keeping the eye on the ball. There are pioneers in this country that are working very hard for this to happen. Yes.
Okay, so one more question about the technology. Where do you think it should be? Which direction should be technology should be developing? Which industry should be need the most investment? And because we all believe that hemp is the future of Earth, where do you think the most investment should be going into hempcrete building or energy, or how do you think? Where do you think it should be going? Can you point a direction, in your opinion, your own one?
My opinion or my vision on that regard is one that I share with other pioneers. That it's not the product itself, it's the automatization of the process, where we can use artificial intelligence and or robotics to create factories that we can mass produce anything that we want. So it's not the final product; it's the process that we need good engineers, good scientists to get this up and running. We have great universities in Australia. We have very good universities in the United States that we can reach that goal in very short time.
Okay, so I think the message from what you're saying is investing in processing, like leave growing for farmers, just leave it open for the farmers. Anyone who wants to grow shouldn't need a big license or shouldn't pay for it, should just be able to grow. And the industry should be focusing on developing technology and machines and making the whole process more mechanical, which is basically the similar... Yeah, automatize. Yeah. So this is basically very similar conclusion from the previous conversation. I told you my first conversation with Maciej Kowalski was about hemp in Poland. Maciej is also a pioneer in producing hemp textures, and they're trying to make this process fully automatic. So this is where we are going. So, and this is actually what you said, that if one company, if we don't need a lot of suppliers from different countries and a lot of people that on the way have to make a lot of money, and their their provision on the sales, then the price will go low in the whole world. The prices will just drop in the hemp industry. So I think that's interesting conclusion of our conversation. We are past 1 o'clock here. It's late. It's already in the evening in Australia. Thank you very much for spending the time and talking to us about hemp and cannabis and medical marijuana in Australia. My guest was Ramon Granados from Australia, from an expert in hemp and representative of hemp engineering. Thank you very much. The next conversation I'd like to invite you to is my Thursday webinar at 6 p.m. I'm going to talk to Stelios Alevras, the lawyer of Wolne Konopie Association, and we are going to talk about the situation in Poland in Polish. But next Saturday, I'm going to talk to Janaki Mitrowski from Macedonia, and we are going to learn from their experience this time. So thank you very much for participating. I'm going to close it in Polish for just a few seconds. So thank you, Ramon, again for your time. Dziękuję wszystkim jeszcze raz za udział w dzisiejszym webinarze. Zapraszam na czwartkową rozmowę ze Steliosem Alevrasem na temat legalizacji marihuany w Polsce i jego wizji, w jakim kierunku powinno to się rozwijać. Natomiast w przyszłą sobotę porozmawiam z Janakiem Mitrowskim z Macedonii na temat jego doświadczenia. Postaramy się nauczyć z doświadczenia właśnie z Macedonii. Dziękuję wszystkim za udział w dzisiejszym webinarze. Będzie dostępny na YouTube Wolnych Konopi. I na wydarzeniu na Facebooku będę informować Was o kolejnych gościach. Życzę wszystkim spokojnych, nadchodzącego czasu wolnego z rodziną. Mam nadzieję, że wszyscy będą w stanie odpocząć, spędzić go mimo obowiązujących dziwnych czasów w bardzo miłej atmosferze. Dziękuję bardzo i do zobaczenia w czwartek. Thank you very much again.